Daydreaming about dragons, reply show. Let's do this. So I've gotten a bunch of replies from a bunch of different people, and they're saying something very similar. So I want to talk about Pinterest. It's clearly on folks' mind. I think Michael Miller sent me a message. Matt L. sent me a message. I'm going to have a link to Matt's Pinterest board, which is called So Many Incisors, which is his personal Monster Manuals board. I'll have a link to all of my boards, and I'll talk about a few of them and how I use them. The board that I use the most is Stars Without Number, and I think that's because our Stars Without Number game is it's science fiction, but science fiction can mean so many different things, right? Some people look at Star Wars and they say science fiction. So we need to really narrow it down. And what I like to do is I can say hey, this is what an old school battle cruiser looks like. This is what a technology from another era looks like. This is what technology that the aliens made looks like, that they left behind. So I can use that to narrow down images. I also like it just as an exercise. If I have an idea for a campaign, to throw up a Pinterest board and just put images in it that inspire me and make me think of that game. And it narrows things down for me in a way that is really concrete. So I'm going to talk about a few of them and talk about a few of those boards specifically. You can go to those boards while I'm doing it and follow along. I'm just going to do it for a few, not for all of my boards, because then we'll be here all day. Here we go. Pinterest Delve. Let's do it. Sorcerer is a Pinterest board I use a lot because when you start a Sorcerer game, you're kind of setting a tone, and that's in the text of the book a lot. And in the culture of play, we used to create these one-sheets where we would talk about the bibliography and the vibe and maybe include a picture or two. And I will include a link to one of my one sheets. And I think it's a really valuable, making a one sheet for a game, a handout with a couple of rules, nothing overwhelming, a picture or two attributing the artist, right? So if folks want to track them down and hire them or pay them for a thing, they can. And maybe a little quote is really good. Mine was called Blood Simple. And it was classy. It was a lot of fun to make, too. And if you want to kind of learn some layout skills, it would be a good way to do that. I did not, but you could. And the reason why I think I wanted to make one for Sorcerer is because the book, in the text, it talks about world building through bibliography. And the bibliography in the original book is right up front. Right? He doesn't bury that in the back. The bibliography for the game and what has inspired him is right in the beginning, which I think says a lot about the game. And you really want to world build through tone and theme, and not so much through creating an expansive history that goes back to the beginning of time. You want to do that kind of thing where you're discovering that stuff through play. So Sorcerer definitely gets a Pinterest board because it almost was Pinteresting before Pinterest was Pinterest, right? I feel like especially in the forum culture around the Forge and the Adept Press forum at the time, creating that kind of dictionary of images for your game was an important thing and an inspiring thing. So yeah, check it out. And you'll see that my Pinterest board is all over the place. And the Pinterest boards I'm putting up are definitely not for one campaign, right? I think there are every 2 or 3 pictures, there are dozens of campaigns in here. I think you could take any one of these pictures and almost make a campaign out of it. And it's just, you get a feeling. What I like about putting together these boards is you get a feeling for what you like and what you don't like. And that's super important. So let's get to that a little bit more and talk about what I don't like. On to the next. So I put together a very specific Pinterest board for a Burning Wheel game I ran for years called Traditions of the Sword Lords. And it was this Pinterest board is a board that I put together with myself and my buddy Rachel. And it was interesting to put it together because you have to go through so much fantasy art, right? And you're putting in search terms and you're looking up different fantasy art and finding fantasy artists you like and finding ones you don't like. And what I was noticing in fantasy art is that there's so much anime inspiration, and you get these huge berserk-style swords that are a bit oversized. And I knew I didn't want that for this game, which is a good thing to know, right? It's good to know what you like, and it's also really a valuable thing to know what you don't like. And it's just, it can be hard to draw those lines, and Pinterest allows you to do that and show like, hey, this is what this is about, right? Because sometimes a Warhammer image works, and sometimes a Warhammer image does not work. And why does one work and the other not? And that's a really interesting thematic thing to kind of be putting together for your games. So yeah, Pinterest helped me figure out that feeling for the Sword Lords game, and I knew it going in. But it was a lot of fun doing that. So rock on for Sword Lords. The other nice side effect is that I had an expansive array of NPC images. So when the players met new NPCs, I could put images to them so they could picture them more clearly. And it allowed me to have an artifact from the game. I can look back at that, you know, along with the actual play posts, and think back fondly, which is really nice. So that's another nice side effect of having a Pinterest board for your game, and opening that Pinterest board to the other players. You know, opening up so that it's not something you're doing alone. You know, once you set that tone, it can become part of the discussion. So, thumbs up. On to the next. So the next couple are games I have not played. I don't even know if they're games. Are these campaigns? What are they? What's going on? All right. So I've got one called Dwarven Mining Company. That's totally just a Burning Wheel campaign I want to play someday. Absolutely just a game I'm daydreaming about when I'm not daydreaming about dragons, although there certainly will be dragons in the Dwarven Mining Company game. I love the idea of someone playing a working class, blue collar, badass dwarf trying to get their business in the green. You know, the dwarven prince owes them a heaping load of money because they're feasting all their lords all the time, and they've got to keep the tunnels clear with trolls so they can get the metal out of the earth. And you can see that in my Pinterest board. I've got another one called City Guard D&D Noir. What is that? I have no idea. I just know that the idea of The Wire meets D&D appeals to me, and you know, the Maltese Falcon, you know, that kind of vibe in the D&D world, in a setting that has, you know, is in a city choked with adventurers trying to make it big, you know, that fascinates me. So City Guard D&D Noir is in there. What does it mean? I'm not sure. Not sure yet. I've got Primordial World. What is that? Okay, I'll tell you. I've got this idea for a prehistory D&D game before humans had risen to power, and it's just lizard people and dinosaurs. And of course, there's a comet coming, right? There's a comet just coming. It's in the sky. You can see it, and it's going to hit the Earth before the game is done and end this civilization. So it's kind of like playing a game on the Titanic, right? You know it's going to end. It's just a matter of how and when. And that is a ton of fun. And what else should I talk about with that? And there's one other that I should talk about called the Riddle of Blood, which is a campaign I did run. But I didn't run it with this Pinterest board. I kind of made this Pinterest board in memorial to it. So Riddle of Blood was a hack of the game Riddle of Steel, and in which you played, you know, heavy metal vampires dueling with swords, cutting off each other's hands and arms. And the cool thing about that game was when you cut off someone's arm, it happens in the mechanics, and it's brutal. And I like the idea of when you hack off a limb in vampiric heavy metal dueling, you take that limb with you and you own it. Maybe they have to ransom it back. Maybe they never get it back. You can use it to cast spells on them. Blood magic, brutal stuff. And I hope that's shown in the Riddle of Blood aesthetic. All right. So there are a couple of times where I'm the campaign isn't there yet, or maybe it happened a long time ago and I'm remembering it or thinking about how I would do it now, and I'm just using the board to put together images and get daydreaming about it. So those are some thoughts. All right, let's get to a possible concern I have with Pinterest. So the reason why I didn't jump on this Pinterest idea earlier is I do have a concern. Okay, I use Pinterest a lot. I like it. It's fun. It's a fun tool. My concern is that sometimes it takes art, it skims art off the internet, and it doesn't attribute the artist properly. So when you're using this stuff, when you're linking to it, when you're showing it to your friends, when you're talking about how cool that image is, try to find the artist's name, try to get it in there. These folks work really hard to acquire the skills they need in order to make this beautiful, moving art that inspires us. So let's take a moment and make sure they are given proper respect. It's my only concern about making a whole show about Pinterest is, am I doing right by the artist? Am I doing right by the person whose labor created this inspiration? And sometimes yes, sometimes no. And that concerns me. That worries me. So hasn't stopped me from using Pinterest yet, but it's on my mind. And I'd like it to be on all of our minds. If you have some thoughts on that, if you have some more developed thoughts on that, I'd love to hear it. Hey, I'd like to welcome a new voice to the conversation. Thomas has started a podcast called Actual Prep, and he cites an episode of Daydreaming About Dragons as an inspiration, which is absolutely wonderful and wondrous. Thomas, welcome to the conversation. I'm thrilled to see you joining us, and I can't wait to see more about Actual Prep, which is an awesome idea for a podcast in which he talks about how concrete ways in that he prepares for his games. And I can't wait to see more and hear more, and have a new voice to the choir. If you've got something you need to say, please say it. Drop me a line or start your own podcast. Let me know it's on. I will totally listen. I will totally comment, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you. So Thomas, thank you very much. I'm honored, and I hope your daydreaming goes well, and I hope your games go well. Welcome. Thank you for listening. This was a reply show, which is numbered entirely differently than the other shows. It's considered a bonus show. What I do is I take emails, tweets, messages I get, and I reply to them. It's a little bit different it's structured differently, entirely differently than the normal show, in which I talk about a moment or a technique of actual play, and then something in media that's inspiring me, and it usually takes about 10, 20 minutes, and then call it a day. All along the way, trying to coax viewers to talk about what their own experiences are, because I'm interested to hear from you. I'm not trying to talk from a pulpit. If you would like to support this show, you can do so a number of ways. You can purchase the Dictionary of Mu. It is a swords and sorcery science fantasy setting book for the game Sorcerer. It's set up as a dictionary from that world. Check it out. It's won some awards, and I think you'll love it. You can hit the support this podcast button and send me some money. I've got a third supporter. Thank you. You wonderful, glorious Trinity, you. I appreciate all your help. And it's really nice, and I will tell you what I plan to do with that money once I figure out the exact plan to spend it. I've got some ideas, but I want to make sure it's all concrete before I talk about it too much. And the other way is to just send me an email, send me a tweet, send me a voice message on the Anchor app. My email is r.karlman@gmail.com. My Twitter link is at the bottom of the show notes. I would love to hear from you and just have another voice in the conversation. If and when I do, I will put it on a Wednesday reply show. So, and if you don't like hearing replies, you just want to hear the regular shows, you can skip the reply shows. As I said, they are numbered entirely different. This one is going to be called Reply Show Pinterest. They all have different code names, usually from the phonetic alphabet. So thank you for joining. Thank you for listening. I will see you this coming Sunday where we'll have a new show out. All right? See you then.